and to step out of the way so that the illustrious and well-known Dr. Damiano can, yeah, I like to try to make him blush, but just let Dr. Damiano handle the business and share his knowledge with us today. Today's topic is actually uh, employability profiles and WBL stars reporting. So with that, I'm gonna again step aside and let Dr. D take it away. So take it away, Dr. D.
Thank you, Desmond. Hey, party people. Welcome to another training session with me. We're going to have a good time. Our general agenda is going to be some brief system announcement updates. Then we'll dive into the employability profile. We'll do a very quick overview of recording work-based learning in the Career Pathways portal that was recorded as a separate session from this. But of course, it never hurts to look at it again. Then we'll look at, well, where do we report this work-based learning data in its totality or summarized version? And that will, of course, be in stars. So we'll take a look at the rules there. And then naturally, we'll devolve into, questions and answers and things that have nothing to do with our agenda. And that is totally okay. So let's get upfront and personal with our announcements to begin with. And so the first announcement that I have with you all is that some of you may have noticed that there are some new I-9 updates to the platform. Students will be able to complete page 1 of their I-9 in the platform. So that is available to them. They do that on the documents page in the Career Pathways portal. More information and supporting materials for students to be able to do that will be shared out relatively soon. They have to be created, but it is a new feature and function available to our youth. The second announcement is around financial documents. As we have entered a new calendar year, which is how the world of W-2s and 1099s work, students are anticipated to receive their appropriate W-2 or 1099 by the end of the month or through mail a few days after that. Employers, including the Department of Education, need to send out these things by the last day of January. And so those should be anticipated by young people. Although we do not provide financial or tax advice or directions to our young people, as the Department of Education, we do have a responsibility to inform our youth that they will be delivered to them. The W-2 and 1099 should also be available when it becomes released on the participant portal. And again, students would receive a W-2 if they participated in a wage-based internship during the calendar year, so January to December of 2022 at any point. And scholars will receive a 1099, which is another tax form, if they've participated in a workplace challenge, which is also known as an industry-based project or a stipended opportunity. The one caveat to that is that scholars will only receive a 1099 if they received over $600 as part of those stipended payments. This is, of course, one of the reasons why if you make under $600, you do not need to legally be reported as making income. And that relates to other areas and other special populations of our youth. What is super important is that these documents may need to be corrected. And so if you need to do that, please follow the directions that are available on the Career Pathways portal homepage. If a young person has an incorrectly entered name, social security number where applicable, or the amount that they earned in total. You may also contact a Sims Borough Manager for these instructions. And it should be noted that only school staff may contact the programmer's financial department to make these records corrected to reduce a heavy level of call volume. There's a lot of students, but fortunately there are less coordinators and they can do those contacts. Last final thing before we do any kind of check-in of clarification, before we fully dive into our agenda, is that we are consistently welcoming and open to receiving your feedback. And so it's really important that if there's anything that isn't working, or should you need any form of support, please let us know. We are consistently making updates to the platform to enable it to be more seamless for you. Some of those things will be discussed today, but of course, feel free to reach out to us at any time. While I get our screen shared up and going, any clarifying questions or concerns? All right, so let's head on in. So folks, the first part of today is going to be around the employability profile. As previously discussed at a few different professional development as well as program accountability sessions, an employability profile is what is effectively a performance record for our young people as they participate in our career and technical education programs. All young people involved in a CT program are required to have an employability profile, but of course, there is a benefit for any young person to have an employability profile. Employability profiles are built into the career pathways portal so long as a student has an account and they are considered a CTE student. Theoretically, they should also have a created employability profile. If you don't see that or you're having an issue, we definitely can help you with that. There are resources available to you to support completion and filling out similar to this training regarding an employability profile. And so just directing you to those now is going to be part of this training. And of course, the first resource that we can check out is our Career Pathways Portal Handbook, which contains, of course, visual narratives and videos that explain everything you need to know about an employability profile in terms of using it in the system. And you can see that these have been specifically highlighted on the screen for you, but also broken down by section, so that way you can focus in on exactly what you need to do. In addition, there's student relevant materials that enable them to figure out how to complete their section of the employability profile, primarily related around entering their skills evaluations as a reflective practice, as well as the ability to download it, whether they're using that to actualize on a articulation agreement with a post-secondary institution, or that they need the record to use it as a tool to plan their resume or cover letter. Those instructions are available as well in the handbook. Finally, there's a lesson plan available for your use should you choose to use it, that enables teachers in your school to walk young people through the steps to be able to explain to young people how to effectively evaluate themselves in the platform. And although the instructions are for CTS, the previous name of the Career Pathways portal, all of the instructions still apply. And we'll work on updating those to be relevant to this platform 100% in alignment. So how do we get to a young person's employability profile? Well, it's pretty simple. The first thing we're going to do after logging in at careerpathways.nyc with your unique username and password is going to be going to the navigation bar at the top and clicking the students button followed by the student search. You'll then be able to use in a variety of different types of filters to locate the student in question. They might appear on the first list right at the top, or you may need to use things like their OSIS number or name to be able to find them on the list. When you do find them, you will click on their name, and then their account will load. What's so important is that in order for the employability profile tab to show up on a student's account, there needs to be two things in place. The first is that the information on this page needs to be filled in. So for the student tab, any required red asterisk data field needs to be filled in. And second of all, their account status needs to be marked as complete, not incomplete. If you fill in all of those red asterisks, the account should automatically be marked as complete, and all of these lovely tabs, including the employability profile, will show up. Now, the thing is, and this is a common misconception for our school-based users, is that when we click on the employability profile tab, it does not look like the employability profile that we know and love from previous years. And that's because the view of this is more from the perspective of like a database. We're entering information that can be exported into the version that we know and love. which the students can do from their participant portal, or we can do from the reports tab for that particular student. If I select student employability profile, you'll see that the document will download at the bottom of the screen, and I can open that file should I choose to do so. For the purposes of this tab of the employability profile, what we are doing is we're saying, hey, we're gonna, put this data in, and if anybody needs to look at it on the fancy form, like when we need exemplars for the state education department, when we're applying for program approval, or when we need to put these documents in a student's permanent record, like that is what we would export it for. Now, just to give you an example of what this could look like in terms of the export function itself, I'll open that up in a new tab, and we can see that, this for more or less looks very similar to the Excel or Google Sheet version that was developed a few years ago, as well as the paper-based version that both the state and the city put out. But what you can see is in this particular section, for example, where the CT courses are, it's not going to automatically list every course. What it's going to do is it's going to list the classes that have been inputted on the person's account. So if we jump back to their page for that, we can see in this case, the student has been entered twice. Now, this is a test account of a fake student, so it's fake data, and some of it doesn't make sense. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we can see that the student has taken the same course twice, once in the fall, once in the spring, and some of these things are incomplete. As a teacher, as a work-based learning coordinator, or other school-based user, with the exception of support staff or that particular permission level, folks are able to add or update information on a student's employability profile. Typically, more often than not, you will most likely find that teachers, specifically CTE teachers, are the ones that are putting data on a student's employability profile. Today, I will be showing you how to do some of these steps through the manual process. And for some of you who are quick on wordplay, yes, I did say manual process. We are currently in the works for developing a bulk mass function that will enable you to do these types of steps for multiple students at the same time. To be clear, those functions and features are not yet released, but they are anticipated to do so during this school year. I personally feel like we're looking at a late February, March situation, but you never know. And so I don't want to overpromise anybody anything. And so definitely this school year though, because I am going to champion that request from all of you that you told us back in the summertime is a must-have function for this platform. Regardless, the steps will be relatively the same, except for how it is applied to it. And I see you, Wandy and Mike, in the chat. Love you guys. Thank you for your support and advocacy for the community here. So how do we add things into this platform currently for a young person's employability profile? Well, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to click the Add New button. If I'm changing something, naturally, I'll click View and then follow that up with an edit. But when I click Add New, I'll be asked some questions. These are pre-developed fields for your school and for your employability profile. Now, some of these things like year, whether they pass or fail, and the term are relatively, the same for schools. If for whatever reason you're seeing like there's something not matching up for your particular school's needs, definitely drop us a line, get in contact with us, and we'll update these fields. The fields that we can also support you in updating, but are part of the school-based responsibility, are the unique identifiers for your programs. So when I say that, I mean the CT courses and the teachers linked to this program are part of the thing that you can control. And they're related to the things that you're already doing in STARS and for program approval. So we can see here that there's 4 courses in this fake student CTE program. Where do these names come from though? Because I clearly can't enter anything in here. That is part of those milestones that the program approval and quality team have asked you all to stay on top of. To update those things or to get support, you're definitely going to want to reach out to them. But I'll show you where those changes are made, so that way you know how to get your proper courses listed and your teachers listed. Under the school search tab, you'll find your particular school, of course, and that is where we're going to be looking. I'm going to pull up our test school here, and we can see that they have one pathway, one, in this case, CTE program. This program is where we're pulling almost every single drop down of data for your employability profile. So that way you don't have to write out the course name for every single kid. You don't have to write out every technical skill or industry certification. You just configure it in one place. So that way you don't have to do it 30, 60, or in some cases, 1,000 times over. When we look inside of a program specifically, there are these separate sections, and the ones that affect things like courses and teachers are under these other sections here at the end. So for course sequence, we can see our 4 courses: Intro to Programming, Programming 101, 201, and the test. These are the same ones that show up on this student's entry for their employability profile because they're enrolled in that CTE program. If I were to update or change or add a new course to this section, I would get that added to my dropdown as well. As a moment to just take a step back though, let's be super clear here. We cannot just willy-nilly change this page to fit our needs. Your course sequence, similar to all of your CTE program, logistics and operation, especially, but in general, especially when they're approved, have to be set in stone. You can't just change them. If something looks off, there's an issue, definitely contact a team member, but it should match what you're already putting in stars. It should match what you're already putting in documents to the state education department. And in here is where we even attach our teachers. So for Intro to Programming, for example, we can see here at the bottom that no teachers have been attached. I can add teachers based on who's in my contact list. I would love for Harini to be my teacher, but let's pick Rodney for today. If I go back and reload this page, I'll then be able to see like, hey, that option is there, but so is now that teacher that I selected for the case of the courses. The same would also be true for the technical skills when students need to evaluate themselves based on the career directly related competencies that are being taught across your program. And of course, your industry certifications. Some folks have messaged us and said like, hey, my certification's not on the list, or we also offer this. It's not just our technical assessment. We have these other stackable industry certifications in our program. You should be able to add them to your program listing, but if they're not, definitely reach out to a team member. It takes us 2 seconds. We just need to know what's the official name of the certification and who's the authority that issues it. With regards to putting data on the employability profile, what I just demonstrated to you, add new, select items from the dropdown, so on and so forth, is relatively the same for the remainder of the sections. However, I will call out right now some just simple guidelines related to each section. For courses, these are for when students are finished with the course. We're not listing every course manually because a student's pathway may change. And in addition, we only need to mark them if they've completed that course, if the student passed or failed it. This will be a tool for you later on when you're evaluating their employability profile to determine whether or not they've reached the requirements and efforts to appropriately earn their technical endorsement. For the skills section, okay, in which there are 3 sections, they all follow the same general principle. You set up an evaluation round, kids can go in and do their thing, and then the teacher or other evaluator can go and do their thing. To delineate or break down the differences between these things, employability skills are synonymous with professional skills, soft skills, transferable skills, whatever phrase you want to use. But here in the employability profile, we're using the phrase employability skills. We can see that these skills are pre-selected by the City of New York. The district has selected these for all schools. This comes from both a data analytics perspective, as well as the evidence-based research that the city has done on our behalf as schools to be able to determine these are the top things that employers are looking for. So their skill evaluation should be relevant to that. In the past, schools have defined their own employability skills, but around this time last year, the district had come out and said that that's what's happening here. We set the date of the evaluation, which is almost the end of a semester, because we are evaluating young people on their skill growth at the end of each course, whether that's each semester, each trimester, and students should have at least 2 evaluations a year. If you're in an annualized course, that means once in the middle, once at the end. If you're a semester-based course where you have a fall and a spring, that's once at the end of the fall, once at the end of the spring, and so on and so forth. The teacher can enter their rating on a scale of 0 to 4, 0 of course being not applicable, and students on their side of the fence can enter them as well. Students will only be able to enter their skills evaluation from their side of the planet if a deadline is entered. The deadline is how long the students will retain a permission to being able to edit just their scores. They'll never be able to enter the teacher's scores, and that's totally okay. That's not their role, but that's what they'll be able to do. Teachers should feel empowered to be able to do the evaluation before or after their students, depending on the context of their community. Some pedagogues feel that if they insert a score, students will simply just agree with them. Others feel like if they put their scores in first and have students look at that as they reflect, they'll get a more accurate, understanding from their young people about where they feel like they are. And some people argue the opposite and that they should do it afterwards. Regardless, young people will be able to log into the platform and be able to evaluate themselves in that way. So here we have the image from the student side, where they can go to their employability profile, and naturally for this training, it's not loading, but they would be able to click on the same buttons and evaluate themselves. We'll make sure that our programmers get that fixed ASAP. Beyond that, these other particular sections are, for the most part, with one, just entering data. So who is the evaluator for that round of skills evaluations? Who reviewed, down here in the review section, who reviewed annually in a one-to-one conversation with the young person, the progress of their employability profile. This is a great thing to couple in with school counselors who are already doing post-secondary planning, tracking, and stars. 2 birds, 1 stone. Students can insert other achievements that they do through conversation. And then, of course, you can enter the data for your technical assessment and industry certifications. When we're talking about your technical assessment, we're talking about the part 1, 2, and 3, the written, the practical, and the school-developed project or portfolio. This is super easy for you to use. And depending on how your school issues their technical assessment, you might be entering this data in one sitting or across a semester or a few weeks. For example, at my school, the Brooklyn STEAM Center, we have a culinary arts program. We always do the theoretical within the first week of May. So by the second week of May, our teacher can go in and log all of the part 1 results, the written, which for this program is an outdated example, but it will automatically show up here on the list. And we enter the student's score and whether or not they passed or not. In the 3rd and 4th week of May, we do our practical. So in the 1st week of June, our instructor is going in and putting whether students passed or failed that part. And then the 3rd part is graded during Regents Week. So for us, our culinary instructor prefers it to be spread out like that. But our computer science teachers are like, we're all doing it in one day, and that's how it's going to work. So there is spacing, there is opportunity to be able to approach it in different ways, so long as the data ultimately resides on their employability profile. And any additional certifications can be added here as well, pass or fail, but primarily pass, at least in that section. It should be pretty clear, though, that any attempt at any part of a technical assessment should be recorded on an employability profile, pass or fail. Reattempts, you can put more than one. You'll notice that I can put more than one of the part 1s here on this student's employability profile. And that is because, there is the ability in some circumstances for young people to retake their technical assessment. So that's why the function is available to you there. With regards to reporting, like a way for you to quickly review some of this information, besides being able to review it individually one at a time, there are reports in the reports tab that you can use to look at trends of information and things like that. We have the school employability skill and literacy skill report writer. These are aggregate reports. So what they do is they average based on the group of students you tell them to, how teachers and students are rating on those employability skills. Some folks may find that interesting to see, like, well, a lot of our young people think they're not the greatest communicator or have good time in attendance. And you could think about how to support that through your programming. But there's also, ways for you to export things like a list of all the student scores on their technical assessment. So that way you can look at it and determine, like, well, for Perkins, I have to report how many kids passed all 3 parts. Here's all the data. This is what I need. Here we go. With that, I'm going to take a pause, ask for clarifying questions, concerns, and then we'll talk about work-based learning and reporting that in STARS. Yes, Ben, this session is being recorded. All of these career pathway portal sessions, technical support are recorded and they are posted on the homepage of the career pathways portal. But if you can't find it, you can reach out to your Sims Borough manager who will point you in the direction of the recording of the folder. Right, cool. So the second thing is activities, work-based learning opportunities can and should be recorded for career and technical education programs in the Career Pathways portal. So WBL in CPP. We've discussed previously that things like experiences, as we call them in the Career Pathways portal, internships of any kind, and industry-based projects that are paid, which we call workplace challenges here in the city of New York, are automatically identified on a student's experience tab. That's when we look at their account, we can see that there's experiences. But anything else can be recorded in the activities tab, things like mentoring or guest speakers or school-based enterprise participation. All of those things contribute to a student's potential work-based learning hours count. Now here we can see an example, and again, this is fake student, fake data. We can see that Alex has achieved 124 hours of work-based learning that's recognized by the policies set in place by the state of New York's education department. And because of that, they're meeting a Perkins metric. The goal of a grant, right, is to reach certain improvement outcomes. And for CTE, the goal is for youth to attain in general any type of work-based learning, but for the metric, it's 54 hours. For the city of New York, in order for us to appropriately identify that a student has earned their 54 hours in a way that the Department of Education can see it, that needs to be logged in STARS, the Student Transcript and Reporting System. STARS is also where teachers can view their course rosters and things like that, where they enter grades for marking periods and semesters. But there is a administrative function in STARS that enables folks to add what's known as the WBL HR code on a student's transcript. Details and information about how to add this code are beyond the particular scope of this training. However, it should be important to note that when a scholar has achieved 54 hours of state-recognized work-based learning time that has been logged and allocated and supported by documentation in the Career Pathways portal, that semester, they need to be identified with this code on their course code. It only has to be done once. It can be done as soon as the student gets it. We shouldn't wait until the end of their senior year to put these codes up. It gets entered as a course code from a particular deck, and your programmer will know what this is. I'm a teacher. I personally don't know what a lot of this stuff is. But the way it works is students get the mark of P or pass, and that says to the city of New York, hey, this student has gotten their 54 hours minimum of work-based learning. It should also be stated and explained that when a student achieves 108 hours, 100 and whatever the next number is, 52 or something like that, you do not need to enter the code again and again and again. This code is used once on a student's transcript to say, hey, they have 54 plus hours. So it's not a repeat affair either. My recommendation as a practice for schools is at the end of each cycle, and I'll use the word cycle because every school builds their calendar differently, terms, trimesters, annual, whatever. It should be a practice for a person on your team to run the hours report out of the Career Pathways portal and identify who needs that report run. So like anybody who participated in summer youth in this past summer that worked more than 54 hours, like at the end of my summer, I walked in, day one of school, I ran the report, gave it to my programmer, and I was like, don't forget to add this to their transcripts. And to be able to do that, on the reports tab, we have the NYSED hours report. It will give you a list of students and how many hours that they've achieved that particularly pertain or achieve that NYSED designation. You still need to sort the list, so you can only identify the kids who have 54 or more hours. But it is a good way to also pass on to your teachers or your work-based learning coordinator more aptly to say, these young people have still not obtained their hours. What's the plan for them to achieve that, especially if they're seniors? The final question, the final thing is, just to answer Jay Lee's question in the chat, for summer youth employment program, and for something like Work, Learn, Grow, those are externally provided opportunities. And so they get entered as an activity. And so if you need support for being able to do that, definitely feel free to reach out. I have a method, other schools do it other ways. Some schools that participate in Career Ready SYEP have their provider do it, depends on your relationship. And the only remaining clarity before we take any concerns or questions is that please just double check with your program quality person. Work, Learn, Grow has 3 components. It's like a class, actual work, and like workshops. Some of those things are work-based learning. Some of them are not. Like the college class isn't. It's a college class. It's coursework. But the internship that's part of Work, Learn, Grow should count, right? I'm not the definitive word on this, but that is the general caveat that comes with recording work-based learning. Okay, gonna stop there. Any questions, clarifications about reporting in STARS, work-based learning? Because otherwise we will go into a brief second set of announcements and then Q&A about literally anything else.
Yes. No.
James, see your hand up.
And good evening, afternoon. I'm uploading, I found the template and I'm uploading students to the CPP, the profile. I just, there's a lot of students here. What's sort of the basic information we need before like students claim their accounts? Because I have their first name, last name, their OSIS. Would that be sufficient?
So if you are doing the mass upload function, the information is available on the homepage and the spreadsheet will say what data you need for the accounts to be created. They're highlighted in red. So that way you can see like, oh, I need this information in order to submit a mass upload. Now, if you feel like as a school community or as an individual user, you won't be able to collect all that information, alternatively, you can have students self-register where they can provide the same information on their own behalf. But to claim their account specifically, students will need to know their school's name, their date of birth, and their OSIS number in order to claim their account and set their username and password when they register on the participant portal.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, just in case anybody's still thinking about their questions, I also just wanted to throw out the announcement that the team over at the central office is of course hosting our annual CTE Impact on Achievement Conference. You should have received by now an invitation from Sharon Prince Yearwood, explaining that this is a professional development event that is specifically aligned to our needs as CT educators, which is a breath of fresh air because we don't usually get that benefit besides this annual conference that they do. In addition, there will be support sessions for CPP that day as a separate offering. But of course, if you want to come hang out with me and build your strong work-based learning sequences, I'm just, shameless plug here in case any of you want to join my particular session, but there are so many things happening that day. And so feel free to check in with your school administration, get leave to go, and have, a great non-attendance day with your colleagues where we can learn together and do some amazing work. Any other questions or concerns about anything shared today? James, your hand is still up. Is another question?
No, I was going to ask the Dave. You shared the link. Thank you.
I agree. Number 7, Omari. It's my second favorite, actually. I'll jump in here and stop the recording, but I'll still remain on the line in case there's any questions.